Welcome back to Sammy Unsolicited. My guest today has been a friend of mine for 10 years. She is an artist, a mom of two, a chef, a creator, and a dear friend. I'm excited to be introducing the world to Anahid as we sit down in our first podcast and dive into her work, her background, and what inspires her. Welcome, Anahid. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to be meeting with you. I shared with you a little bit about my desire to be wanting to do this for a while. Wanted to start it off a little less serious and ask a couple of fun questions.
Sure.
So I know that your walk-in song is Tainted Love. Why is that?
It's just a memory from my childhood.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's just the epitome of the 80s.
I see you brushing your teeth to the song and then we'll sing. You also mentioned Sade.
Yes. I love Sade. She puts you in a good mood.
Yeah?
And things are smooth. You know, they're uncomplicated. Her songs are upfront and I like that feeling.
Smooth and uncomplicated. I guess smooth, yes. Uncomplicated, not like your coffee order. Because I know that you prefer... Yeah, well, let me tell you. So it turns out Anahid's go-to coffee order is a cortado.
It's not complicated at all.
Tell us about it.
What do you mean?
What is a cortado?
It's just a Spanish tight cap, basically. It's
What
not
makes
really
it
that
tight?
exciting. Well, it's the way they pull the coffee. I don't really know. I just like drinking it.
Very nice. So, as an artist, I know that at a young age, a lot of inspiration had to come from your household. Your dad's an artist,
Yeah.
and you had to grow up around a lot of, I'm guessing, his work. Did the inspiration and kind of motivation to get into art happen because of your environment, or was it something else?
I would say both things played into me being attracted to it. I was surrounded by art my entire life. My mother was a collector and an appreciator of art, and my father was a sculptor, but he was also just a creative. He liked to approach everything we did in a creative way, and exposed us to a lot of art and artisans when we were young. His friends were artists, musicians. They would come to the house, playwrights, and they would all just kind of hang out. It was like not so bohemian as much. Maybe it was when they were young, but when we were in the 70s and 80s, just they would like to hang out, and the things they talked about and the things they exposed me to was the arts. And I was, I guess, innately somebody who liked to draw. I'm not sure if I was really good at it at a young age, but I thought I was.
Pretty good now.
And my art teachers thought I was from second, third, fourth grades. So it was encouraged always to express yourself artistically. And so I did. And I liked it more than anything.
So creating for you, even around fourth grade, that's pretty young. When did you really kind of go into your first few art pieces? Like, what age was that?
That's complicated, I guess, because in school you had to take art. At least in my day and age, art was a mandatory class. So I was creating things then. I remember making things that were sculptural with foil and cardboard with my dad. But I would say realistically, when I was going to go to college, my father said it was smarter for me not to be an art major and to find a lane that I could express my creativity that could make money as well. So I started off in fashion design. And that's when I went to school, or I quit university and I went to fashion school. And when I was 19 or 20, I probably made my first art pieces that were not fashion oriented, but it was based on color theory and stuff like that.
Was
So
it more paintings or?
they were abstracts, there were paintings, and even I have one still today from that time that hangs in my kitchen pantry.
I'd love to see.
Yeah.
So going to FITM
Yeah.
and majoring in fashion design.
Fashion design and marketing.
Before I get into the FITM thing, I was going to ask you. So did you ever collaborate with your dad on a shared art piece together? Because you mentioned that he showed you things like sculpting, and I just wanted to
They were school projects more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say we ever collaborated on anything, unfortunately. I don't think I really dove into the fine arts until I was in my mid to late 20s.
Okay.
To really explore that side of me. I was constantly just drawing and sketching, and he had developed his artistic creativity into a business. So it wasn't like I would go into his studio and he was sculpting and I would go in there. It wasn't really in that way. The only collaboration I remember is, like I said, fourth grade or something. It was a school project and I had to create like a shield and a sword or something. And I remembered that that feeling of creating something or making something with my hands felt good. And because my father was basically a prop master, had made it much more interesting than, what any other child had made in his class. I really got a kick out of it. I guess it's like the same as when people go on stage for the first time and they get that reaction.
Yeah.
That's how it felt when I created something with my hands and people were really like,
Because you walked into fourth grade with the best shield and sword that ever existed.
I think so.
That's really cool. So then came college. So you attended FITM
Yes.
for fashion design and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like?
It was great. It was the 80s in LA. You were exposed to some of the most creative, the most fun during a time that a lot of the arts were being really focused. Street art was being celebrated. I discovered Basquiat and Keith Haring, and all of that was happening at the same time while I was in a fashion school and an artsy school. So it was a lot of fun. It was in downtown LA at the time in an old like department store building before it had moved and gotten really fancy.
So you mentioned that you got into your own art right around mid to late 20s. But what was happening in between, you attending FITM and jumping in and starting your art career? What was happening in transition period?
Well, like most people, I got a job. I was a pattern designer for a company called Samatex that probably doesn't even exist anymore. They design fabrics for swimwear. That was my first real job after college. From that, I became a quote unquote head designer for a mid-level sports wear company. The company was run by a guy that was originally from Organically Grown, that turned into Esprit and all of that. But you learn and you get jaded, I think, about what the fashion industry really and truly is, because I actually thought I was going to become a designer. And then you learn that most of the colorways and all the drawings and everything you do are going to be sent overseas and come back bastardized because it's to sell to Kmart or Walmart or whoever is paying the big bucks for mass production. And that's not what I thought I was getting myself into. And I realized I wasn't that good of a team player probably at the time. So I wanted to change my direction. So I quit. I quit all of that. I thought I was going to go back to school and become a teacher. And I took a year off. And when I took my year off, I interned for a couple of artists, fine artists, painters, sculptors. And I also was working part-time as a furniture designer in a small French interior design company in Beverly Hills. And that just kind of morphed into me learning how to use my color theory and fashion sense to create in a different way than most artists do, I think.
What was the moment where the transition happened, where you stepped into art in a more serious way?
Strangely enough, when I got married.
Really?
Yeah, I had moved to Boston, outside of Boston, and I was alone a lot. I was unhireable because I was pregnant.
Not much has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was home and it was strange weather and a strange place. So I would just sit home and draw and paint and draw. And I realized nothing made me happier.
Wow. What was the moment, I guess, Because what you're describing, being in Boston, cold weather, obviously, getting into motherhood in a new area, because you're a West Coast girl.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Through and through.
I guess the question is, when did this transition from perceived as a hobby into something more real?
That's a really good question.
Did you ever perceive this as a hobby, or
No, I don't.
No?
I don't think I ever perceived it as a hobby, but I never thought of it as a life pursuit either. I think I truly thought of it as a life pursuit in 2010.
Wow.
There was a lot of transitions in my life, different businesses, different pathways, but in 2010, a lot of things changed for me. And when those things changed, I had to come to terms with the idea of, what do I want my life to look like? And when I started discovering that, or exploring that, what do I want my life to look like? I wanted to wake up every morning, grab a cup of coffee, and walk into a studio. I wanted to just paint and create stuff, and focusing on only going back to school, taking classes, and painting what I wanted to paint as storylines. And instead of writing, I thought of them as stories, my paintings and the things that I was creating.
Big year 2010. A lot was happening personally, I assume, for you to kind of, because by 2010, I know you had kids, so you were getting into the early teen stage for your kids, and then having to do a pivot. I think this is super inspirational and very important, and I really want to touch on this, Anahid, because a lot of people are having to do pivots in their life right now, of every single age group. People younger than me, people older than you, and everyone in between. And the reason I wanted to touch on this is because this is a powerful pivot that comes with gut instinct. And I wanted to kind of understand, making this decision on the outside for a lot of people could have been, this could be scrutinized. This could be, like, what is she doing? How much clarity did you need to pull the trigger? Or maybe it wasn't clarity. What was that driving force to say, hey, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to go back to school and I want to pursue this fully?
So in 2010, I separated from my husband, and I sold my house, and I completely changed my life. And again, it was to realize what I wanted my life to look like. And everything I was doing was not what I had envisioned my entire life of my life being, of what I wanted in my day to day. And I thought, is that what I want to show my kids? So there's no reason to not do something unless you're scared to fail. Well, in my head, I had already failed because my marriage had fallen apart and I'm not doing anything I like. So I had no choice but to do something I love. And if I failed at that, at least I was having a good time. So it was just, there was literally no reason not to jump. And scrutiny was the furthest of my mind because my own scrutiny is probably worse than anybody else's. And my opinion has always been more important to me than others. And my opinion of what was happening at the time was not very good of myself. So I had to, like self-preservation, I had to make a change. And if I didn't change it, I was going to die. So I had to do something that would show my kids a better life of pursuit.
I'm so impressed by this answer. You have no idea. That is and I'm not trying to be shallow at all, but first of all, wow. As a person who's going through my own transitions, professionally speaking,
Mm-hmm.
you said something so powerful about your own kind of opinion of yourself and how happy you were and how you saw some of the things that were happening in your life, some of it out of your control really, and some of it, partially you're responsible for. And you're saying, overall, I don't see this as a path that I approve of. I'm not, this is not sparking joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I want to tie this into in a non-shallow way is that is the truest Taurus like answer you can get. And we've been friends for a very long time. And I've always known Anahid as this very powerful, strong Taurus. But hearing your journey through 2010 and this pivot and taking things more seriously and how it had to spark joy and make sense and what you envisioned your morning being like, grabbing that cup of coffee, walking into a studio and painting, that is so inspirational and very, very much a true Taurus. You and I have talked about astrology quite a bit.
Yeah.
Where do you think this Taurus side has served you in this pathway, and has it ever hindered you? Tell me how this is like for
Well,
you.
it hinders you for sure, because if you lean into the stubbornness, which I definitely do, it's probably not a great quality. And I've had to learn through reading, therapy, and a bunch of other things of how to let go of things and to not give importance to being correct as much. But I think innately, if you follow astrology, the love of beauty, the love of art, the pursuit of joy, like you said, to find joy in everything that you do and to not get hung up on all the other things, it does serve me very, very well. And it helps me let go of the things I need to stop doing is the reason why the same things are the reason why I get to do them, if that makes any sense at all.
Actually, it does, because you turned the stubbornness of Taurus into the determination of Taurus.
Like, okay,
And I think it's determination.
I like that.
That's how I see it. I think you can criticize every single sign in the zodiac for different things. I believe that stubbornness is a natural trait that people tend to identify with Taurus. But you can also look at it on the other side of that same exact token, is that stubbornness comes with determination because of clarity that they have. And they're going after what they want unapologetically. And that is something to admire. I don't see it as a problem unless there's ego attached to it. But you just said right now, you gave less emphasis and focus on things being correct. And that's when the ego detached and the focus sharpened. I really admire that. I've known you for this long, but never have we ever dove this deep into this conversation. You just gave me goosebumps.
Aw.
That was so inspirational. You have no idea. I think a lot of people need to hear these types of stories because you're in the middle of a pivot, when you're in the middle of a massive change, life is uncontrollable anyways, but you're feeling even more out of control. And then to find your pathway and carve it out, which is what you did, is truly inspirational and very human. And a lot of people need to know that if you put in the effort and have that clarity, you will get to where you want to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No matter what it is, whatever your pursuit is. And as frivolous as others may seem or think your pursuits are, whatever they are, they have to make you a better person, a person that you like more. And once you're doing that, nothing else really can affect you. Nothing else can really bother you that much. I mean, I'm not perfect, obviously, just like anybody else. I get hurt by being left out of something, or I get, like, when am I going to be considered an expert at something or at the level of something else? But ultimately, I kind of like where I am. We all want to be somewhere else, or else there's no drive. But,
What you just said shows itself in your work, because I've seen a lot of your work. Some of it is on fresh, brand new canvas, and a lot of it is on reclaimed, unique pieces, things from like pallets. I've seen vintage clothing busts, like the one behind me. I've seen, all sorts of different material that you've used in the past where you were able to see the beauty in something and bring it out. My question to you is, do you see the art coming through it, or does it take time to identify what this piece will look like in the future? I guess what I'm asking is, what is that process like when you see something that's not a piece of canvas, and how do you bring the art out? How do you bring out the beauty? What is that process like for you?
well, a lot of times I just am gravitating to the material itself. I don't see the art that's in there necessarily. I just think it's like, I can say there was a bunch of old cutting boards that we had that were for cheese boards and stuff, and they were getting warped, and something bizarre was happening, and one of them cracked, and I felt bad to get rid of them. So because I find the beauty in the crack and I find the beauty in the warp of the wood, I want to, I guess, approach it like, how can I use this somehow? And I wasn't really thinking about my artwork, but then my daughter turned it upside down and held it by the handle. I'm like, oh my God, it looks like a head. And we both were like, oh, you have to do a series like this now. It's like, oh yeah. So it's usually, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I still don't know. They're just sitting there. And sometimes a pile of rubble or whatever it is that I'm collecting might sit for years, but I can't get rid of it. And sometimes the minute I start using that extra stuff like the pallets were immediate. I couldn't stop painting on them. I loved the feel of the wood. I loved playing with the wood and finishing it like it was a piece of furniture before I got to it. The process itself, and then it reveals itself to me. I just like the process of refurbishing something and making something beautiful out of something old and broken, because I've always approached it, and I think it has something to do with my dad, that there's no such thing as perfect. We're all a little broken as humans. I personally have struggled with things that are not perfect about my body. I was diagnosed with scoliosis when I was 13, so I had to wear a brace. So that uncomfortable, being made fun of, bizarre person who's so imperfect, still has a lot of things inside, right? And everybody, whether you're an amputee or maybe you're, I don't know, dyslexic, it doesn't make you less than. Everything has its perfection in the imperfection. And so that's why I think I started approaching discarded materials. It's also really inexpensive.
Yeah, that's true. That's the beauty of unconventional materials, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's discarded. For some people would call it trash.
Yeah.
And then you see an opportunity for beauty.
Yeah.
You said that sometimes it'll sit there for a while.
Yeah.
Right? I guess the question that I have for you is, when did the unconventional material artwork start?
From the get-go.
Really?
I can honestly say, and I will again attribute it to my dad. I think it's like, I'll go back all the way to 4th grade. The fact that he used foil, to create what everybody else was trying to create to make it look like it was metal. The idea of trying to use household items or things around you. You don't have to go out and buy them. You don't have to go out and spend a lot of money to create something fun and interesting. And I mean, I used to get old cardboard boxes and turn them into puppet shows with my sister, just to get our creative juices going. And I used to create puppets out of popsicle sticks and stuff I found around the house. I don't know, toilet paper rolls and yarn and I don't know, whatever we found. And I enjoyed that process of making things. I think it's the idea of making something. And as you get older, what you're attracted to is what your work turns into. Because I'm not making puppet sticks anymore.
This is what happens when you don't give your kids iPads.
Probably.
How do you create when it's a screen? You could create something digitally, but what you're describing is so organic and it's curious, right? Because you were a kid.
Oh, yeah. We were children.
There's a lot of innocence behind this. None of this is intentional. It's accidental and charming in a way. I love that. Very
Thanks.
cool. It's funny because there is no favorite here. There's no favorite in between like a canvas and reclaimed material. I feel like you've put your heart into both, and I've seen some exceptional work on both. You have a recent collection debuted behind us. Can you tell us a little bit of the merger of both? Because I have some insight about this, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more of how you came to create this amazing collection and tell us about what it is and how you got here.
Well, the first piece I did in this vein is actually right in the middle here, the purple one. And it started during COVID. We were stuck at home. We weren't doing anything. So what I had is all I had. And I just thought we were throwing away so much paper. Like, I need to do something with this magazines and the paper or whatever. And I think always I look through magazines and you're looking at furniture, you're looking at fashion, you're looking at whatever, but I saw color. I would always see the different colors coming out at me. Oh, this page is more green. This page is more yellow. So I started tearing, and instead of paint, using pages to create images or whatever and play with them and collage with them until I decided to start cutting them. And I don't know why this particular shape happened, but it did. There's no stamp for this. There's no stencil for this. I just cut it. And because I kept cutting it, I actually created my own little stencils with masking tape and stuff, and just kept cutting. And I wasn't really sure what I was doing with them. And I played with it a few times until this started, and I just wanted the colorways. And I enjoyed, again, I guess I come back to color theory again, the idea of merging certain colorways together. And then the stories kind of came out of it, what pages. I literally think about the consecutiveness of how many purple, how many pink, how many white. There's actually a pattern within the patterns, and you kind of get lost in it. And that's kind of the idea, because when you get lost in what's being said in each one of the little pieces, I'm hoping there's something nostalgic about it. And then it just kept growing from there.
This is a marriage of unconventional material meets canvas.
Yeah, they're all done on wood. These are done on wood.
Oh, so
None of these three none of them are canvas. Yeah. They're wood panels.
do you mind if I ask how much time does something take? Like a single piece, like this centerpiece?
Months.
Months.
It takes months just to collect the amount of paper you want, because you collect the magazines, then you have to go through the magazines and delineate between colors, and then you have to cut each piece. Each one, this one has over 2,000 pieces on it.
Wow.
Hand cut pieces of paper. And I have since then, that's an approximation. Since this piece, when I put a piece down, I actually count them now, so that someone will know if it has 1,600 pieces or 700 pieces, or maybe only 450 pieces, but how many pieces of paper were cut to create this.
You shared another fun fact about when you started to look at the paper. You mentioned something about magazines and like old vintage magazines.
Oh, yeah. A lot of these are magazines that I have been gifted by friends of mine who are graphic designers or interior designers. So some of these date back to the early 80s.
I guess I want to ask you something, because there is a signature, and this is something I've known and I've identified. I could be anywhere, in a hotel lobby, in a coffee shop. If I see one of your pieces, I'll know it's an Anahid piece, because there's a distinct, beautiful face that's never the same, but carries an energy. I want to ask you about the Anahid faces that you project onto canvas and unconventional materials. That distinct, big-eyed, beautiful, usually female, I want to say. What can you
Usually.
tell me about this?
Unfortunately, I probably can't tell you much. To be very, very
Really?
honest with you, there's nothing intentional about it. Nothing whatsoever. They started off, I usually did all my paintings, the first ones, with no faces at all. They were headless bodies, because it was all about body image. And there was a small project that I was brought into, I can't even tell you what year it was, and they asked me if I would sit and draw these faces on book pages while I was there. And I said, sure. And I kind of would doodle these faces. And I doodled them off, like, I think that I must have done 100, 150 of them within a couple of days. And that just sparked an interest in faces and trying to make the face be the entire canvas. Because I think people relate to a face and are gravitated to that face. But I don't have a specific, they're just a bunch of little friends in my head, man. I have
Yeah.
no idea who they are
Wow.
or why they are.
I gotta do something. I'm gonna ask my producer for a favor. George, do you mind grabbing my Louis Vuitton pouch?
Oh yeah.
This will be worth it, I swear. Please pardon us for this commercial break. There's a reason for this. I'm gonna bring something out. I'll be where? That is a great question. It is probably on either that table or that. Yep, that's the one. Thank you. That was George, everyone.
Producer's credit.
Thank you so much to our fabulous, amazing producer. Okay, so Anahid, around 2018, you gifted me an artwork piece of yours, and I wanted to transport her today in style, which is why there's a pochette. And you also named her, so I wanted to bring her out, and I wanted to talk about this. So this goes way back, and I present to you one of your
Oh, yes.
creations.
Yeah.
I want to feature her. I think she should hang out with us.
Yeah, she should.
Not that these gorgeous flowers aren't working, but
yeah.
so this is really interesting to me. I've always loved her. I've cherished this gift. And she's painted, and I don't know how much detail they'll see on camera, but she's painted on a page from a storybook.
Yeah.
And this has meant so much to me, by the way.
Yeah.
This has been in the background of every apartment I've ever had, like literally center stage. I wanted to ask you, some girls you name and some girls you don't. This one is named Broadway. What inspires you to kind of give them a name? It feels like there's a little bit of an emotional attachment sometimes with these faces.
I don't know if it's emotional necessarily, but there's definitely a theme. I had one series again on book pages that were part of a show at the LA Art Share, and they were called Angelino. So they were all named like Malibu, and I don't know, I think one was Van Nuys and one was Pasadena, and just the idea of being in LA County. A lot of my work, as ethnic as it may seem, is, and again, unintentionally that way because of my cultural background, but also it's very much about me being an Angelino, not American, not California, specifically Angelino. It's something that's like in my DNA.
Yeah.
And so when I name them, I have a feeling this series might have been something I had put together that named a lot of streets in Glendale.
Broadway. That
I
means so.
have a feeling that's what this series is from. I can't remember all of
I
them.
just got goosebumps. I lived off of Broadway in Glendale.
Well, then that was supposed to be yours.
We've done so well. I want to go in a little bit deeper. Recently, on your Instagram story, I saw you starting to work alongside your daughter on an installation. And in the beginning, it started looking like you were collecting a lot of shoes and like sneakers and stuff. And then I saw you were painting over them. I wanted you to talk a little bit about what that was and what was the inspiration behind it, and where is that art installation currently?
Okay, so the installation was an installation that happened at the Brand Library. There was a group put together that was going to showcase disabilities not as disabilities. And when I was asked and I was approached because the curator there had heard that I had always wanted to do a piece based on the fact that my father was an amputee. My father was an amputee since the age of 9. So it was just a fabric of who he was. It wasn't like something that happened to him, to us as a family or something. He's always been that way. And I'd always wanted to do something to honor him and to really showcase the fact that we never looked at it as a disability. It was just who he was. And so I started collecting shoes because he's an amputee. It just shows like what we all get in pairs, but he didn't. He bought them in pairs, but one was on a foot and the other one was on a fake leg. And then towards the end of his life, he was no longer using the prosthetic, and he was on crutches. So it was just a symbolic way to approach and to use as an emotional, I guess, catalyst for you to look at words and the emotional wave of it all. So I had created some stairs, different stages of your life, with only one shoe, with only one leg. And that was the purpose of that exhibit. Right. Unfortunately, after the brand library, I have not expanded on that, which I really want to. I've been writing about it as to what I would want to do. I would want it to be an entire experience, maybe a room. I'm still trying to figure that part out. So it is just housed in my storage, tucked away.
I remember when I saw the video of the installation going up, and I wanted to ask how it felt seeing it all put together, because there's a lot of moving parts to this. It was
Yes.
And I'm sure we'll get a chance to show it. I'll ask you for that video because I'd love for everyone to see how impactful it was, because it was for me. Not even knowing the background story for it, I visually was impacted by it, and I was like, wow, what is this? So when you saw it all come together, as installations are, they take time to assemble, and you still have to artistically put things in a specific placement. And then there's the stairs that represented your age. When it was all done, what did that feel like?
It actually just felt really good that I actually articulated what I saw in my head. I had done little sketches and then larger sketches, and trying to figure out the engineering of it all, because I'm no engineer, but you had to do things in a modular way to transport. You couldn't actually just individually lay 200 and some odd shoes.
It was 200 shoes?
A little over, I believe.
Wow.
So had to be painted, and then they had to be assembled to create the wave. And I had done that right here in my studio, and played with it until it made sense, and then broken them up in pieces. And then I'd have to mark them in between, because there would have to be at least one or two loose ones to cover up where you were actually attaching them. So that took a little bit of finessing and figuring out. But once I did that, it wasn't as, I don't know, it wasn't as, the moving part for me is the creating while I'm in it and thinking about it. I'm constantly thinking about my father, and that is like emotional for me. But once I put it up, to me, I've been done with it. And so it wasn't as emotional, like an attachment to my dad, as much as I get to show off my dad, if that makes any
cool,
sense.
huh?
My father, yeah, I thought he was very cool.
Sounds like it.
I have very high regard for my dad.
I've seen some of his sculptures that you have. So his work, one particular one, which I'm sure we'll show, is almost looks like a woman's silhouette. It's the wood
Oh yeah.
curvy piece that is on your levitating mantle. I'm just going to go with whatever I think. I'm going to name it whatever I think it is. It is a very unique way to showcase art. And I mentioned how much I love it. Do you have a lot of his pieces?
Unfortunately, I do not. There aren't a lot out there that he left behind, I guess. That wood one, it was like a signature of his that he used to do. He would do that in plaster. He did that in stone. He did that in wood. I would love to eventually cast that so that I could actually do a couple of bronze versions and give it to my sisters.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a lot that has survived like in the real world.
You know, it feels like a lot of things in this pathway for you tend to fall into place organically. Do you have any kind of theory as to why that happens for you and how it ends up working out? Or do you just trust the process and just kind of instinctively proceed forward?
Another really good question.
For more amazing content like this, like, follow, and subscribe, and see you next time on Sammy Unsolicited.